Hey y'all. So as you can see, the board is already set, and the board is from the most recent insight message that arrived. We already spent time with this message together. I generally leave the messages up, whether I do them for myself or for the collective. Usually it's to help me bond with the oracle that powers these decks, whether the one that I created or the one created by others. And this time, unlike other times, I couldn't stop thinking about this message and feeling like there was more that wanted to come in. So I'm doing a part 2. And there's much that had been flowing in, and then I sat and did, my usual daily morning sit with myself and my own maintenance, of my experience of this embodiment and whatnot. And more messages definitely dropped in. As I sat down here to be in the energy of this, there's something I noticed again. There's so many messages coming in, but so I'm recording this on June 21st. For some it is summer solstice, some it was yesterday. It's solstice, right? So for some folks it's going to be, I guess it would be winter solstice for the southern hemisphere. But here where I am, see this right here? This was exactly the sunset here yesterday. It was absolutely phenomenally gorgeous and amazing. Especially this here on the horizon. And I'm in a city, semi-city, city town. I can only imagine what it's like in a desert. But I do feel like that's a message just in terms of presence, noticing. One of the reasons that yesterday's or the message from the original this original board, I think I was having curiosity about, is because the general message was about stepping into silence. And in my mind, it was almost like asking a deactivation of the throat chakra. And I was curious about it because much of my path, the clarity of my purpose that continues to come in, and the offerings that I'm making to the world right now is the opposite. It is about activating that throat chakra, because for many of us, we've been silenced by oppression, suppression, and control for generations upon generations upon generations. So I didn't question the message fully. I don't, maybe some of my deepest healing shadow parts questioned it, but I wasn't super conscious of it until I sat this morning and tried to figure out, what was coming in. And so I think the clarity that I found, the original message, which I'm going to link it to this video, still stands. I think that what's coming in now is just a deepening. Which is part of the message in terms of that message to be a watcher, to step back a little bit, is about an offering from our higher selves to do the opposite of what many of us have been doing, particularly to survive or in our healing. And it's not that we are being asked to silence ourselves forever. It's not the case at all. I'm very clear on that. It is just a moment. I think there's something about summer solstice, about this solstice energy, where there's a strong liminal space between opposites, night and day, and shifts, transitions, and I think the consideration here is to take in the power of stepping back one, to let what we've been seeding on our healing journeys seed, grow, and to step back from the conditioning that we must control it, that we must know everything about it in order for it to become. I mentioned in the original insight messages that were coming in, I got a very strong that there's a lot of forces, unseen forces, the behind this and this, like this crown energy that's coming in, that source energy that's coming in, still stands really strong and true for me. And further clarification of, that there's a need for us to release any ideas, perceptions, beliefs of control right now, to let a deeper understanding and foundation for each of us as individuals, and therefore for the collective, to come into being. That what we are attempting to birth is so different from what we have experienced in our conscious selves, that the best way to support it right now is to let it be. And the other messages that came in is like, so it's really interesting, right? So those who aren't clear with my deck has 5 different sections to it, 2 of which is messages from the sacred masculine, our inner sacred masculine, and our inner sacred feminine. And both of them arrived in a traditional sense, in terms of the sacred masculine arrived on the left, the sacred feminine arrived on the right. But what I didn't mention in the original message is that what Spirit is asking us, I just saw those balloons, that's annoying, Apple. What Spirit is asking us is to step into the sacred masculine, opposite of the way that we've been taught, that masculine energy is very active, it's forceful, it's linear, it's planned out. It's often more associated with fire, right? With air, like verbal communication, intense action. This came in asking us to let it flow, like water. Let your thoughts simply flow without needing to control it, and to deepen it within your passions and your desires. Sacral chakra energy, which is also considered quite the home of the divine feminine, right? The womb of us all. Whereas from the sacred feminine, we got a message of action. We got a message of remember your power, that this is a moment that you can engage your boundaries and protections. You can own your space, your energy. It is more of a space of doing, and it comes in at a number of 8, which I feel like it's like could be sustainability, infinity, like that it's ever present, and ever flowing. In this sense, ever doing, right? It's like the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine are swapping places, and then in the middle of that, it gave us the card of truth, to imagine beyond this idea that the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine has to be anything that is binary, that multiple truths can exist. So the sacred masculine can very much flow like we might imagine the sacred feminine would, and the sacred feminine can do and be very much like we would think the sacred masculine as only doing. The other thing I was asked to do was to read a little bit more about Belladonna. The interesting thing about Belladonna, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the former reading, but I didn't really hone into it, is that the planets that Belladonna is associated with is Venus, Saturn, and Mars. So again, it's like you got Venus and Mars, which are traditionally seen as rather, Venus, a sacred feminine planet, Mars, a sacred masculine planet. You got Saturn in the middle, pushing for structure, but also release of beliefs that don't hold us, that aren't actually to the benefit of the greater good. Um, and belladonna is also considered in witchcraft. It's a plant, an energy that holds both blessings and curses, right? So it's again coming back to this idea. My ear is ringing. Ashe. It's again coming back to this idea of the both end. Stay out of the binary. Really step into this idea that there is something beyond which we have been conditioned to understanding is happening, and to just step back and let that happen. And I'm getting the message that this is deep, deep, deep reconfiguring around shifts to our perspective, shifts to our understanding of what is possible, understandings of our own power, and reminding us that love always wins. Our Lady of Guadalupe comes in to remind us that you have all that you have. The most powerful force is love. Remember your power. And to lean into her when you feel like you can't. If during this time that we are being asked to simply bear witness, which could be really hard for some of us, because there's so much happening that feels like it needs to be we need to be actionary all of the time, to lean into Our Lady of Guadalupe, right? The Empress of Protection. Lean into love, to give the space necessary for something else to bloom, for something else to grow, for our foundation to be upon something other than power over patriarchy, even though that's really what most of us only know. To trust that there is something else happening in the ethers, in the backgrounds. There's more to our experiences than the oppressive, suppressive, controlling forces have led us to believe. And it's a beautiful moment at summer solstice for that, because more light is coming in, right? Our days are getting longer in the northern hemisphere. Our days are getting longer. We have more in the energetic sense. There's more to see, more light for which to see. But that doesn't necessarily mean in seeing more action. It could be. This is not a forever slowdown or an ask to let it. I think that things are going to ramp up, but it's asking us to give a moment of just simply being, so that a different foundation can be created in the spiritual, in the energetic, in the realms that are actually creating the reality that we are experiencing, the realities that we are experiencing. I did tell Spirit that I did want to pull one more card. Yesterday I was stuck between this deck and this deck here for the main card. Now I understand why, because I think Spirit knew. Obviously time is a lie in the spirit world, so they knew I would come back to this and would come back to this. This deck is the Divine Nature deck, and just asking Spirit for a deepening of this, for us to understand this idea of shutting our mouth and opening our ears and bearing witness. All right, hold your ground. Hold your ground is what came in. Another 3. All right, so I'm going to read it from the book. Hold your ground. No is a necessary magic. Use it often to free the bound, liberate the oppressed, and honor the sacred within yourself. Do not be swayed by achievement, approval, or the secondary satisfaction of pleasing others. Think of your truth as a delicate being inside of you that deserves fierce protection. Ashe. Thank you, universe. Once you have admitted the truth inside of you, it's time to embody it by speaking it and allow it to be protected by the ferocity of self-kindness. To thy own self be true. Learning to hold our ground and protect our precious resources makes all of our relationships more authentic, even if some of them die off in the process. And the secret irony hiding inside your willingness to say no is that it allows your yes to be more resolute and ecstatic. Ecstatic. I love that it brought in further this idea of truth, and that I think that hold is, for many of us, like threading new pathways, new ideas and understanding of ourselves, of our inner being. Like we are the culmination of an inner sacred and inner feminine divinity. And so multiple truths can exist simultaneously. I think that holding our ground is about, in this moment, we may be pushed, being asked to be more actionary than our spirit is telling us to be, because that's what we're so used to. And that this is saying that no, like part of your power right now is in holding your ground in terms of the work that you're doing in the inner realms. I often have said to clients that doing nothing is doing something. It's just a reframe that we have to make, because oppressive, suppressive, and controlling forces have us think that only doing is what creates change. That action is the only way. It is not the only way. It is one way, but action without the sacred feminine to strategize or devise a way that is about the greater good, that is from love, is harm. And so this hold your ground piece, do not be swayed by achievement, approval, or secondary satisfactions of pleasing others, which is the flow in your thoughts, by your authentic passions and your desires. And know that you have the power to protect, to create those boundaries and protections that you need to hold your ground. Awesome. Thank you, universe. Thank you for that. Thank you, spirit. All right. Thank you to any folks who also returned for this. This might have just been for me, but I don't know. I am grateful for the deepening of the message. I am grateful for my ability to return to this. I am grateful for you for bringing your energy here. Thank you. My energy is going to stay with me. Your energy is going to stay with you. I'm going to cap that there. And as usual, unfettered and infinite love and gratitude. Take care of yourselves out there.